in that little corner of your mind, boxed in by their opinions, caged by their ignorance, and suffocated by your own doubt. I can see it. Hell, I can feel it. You're screaming inside, but no one hears you. No one's even listening. Let me tell you something, kid. The world, it doesn't care. You could burn yourself to ash trying to keep them warm, and they'd still complain about the cold. They ignore you because they can. You see, people like that, they don't acknowledge you until you shove yourself into their line of sight, force your voice into their heads, and leave them no choice but to see you for what you are. But before you can impose yourself on them, you've got to stop hiding behind the curtains of your own fear. Fear? Oh, I know it too well. That little bastard whispers in your ear, doesn't it? Telling you, you're not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough. Let me clue you in on a secret. Fear is a liar, a cruel one. It wraps its hands around your throat and squeezes until you choke on your own potential. But you're going to grab that fear by its slimy neck and make it work for you. Because if you don't, if you let it win, they'll keep pretending you don't exist. And you'll die a nobody, forgotten, dismissed, erased. That's what they want, isn't it? They want you quiet, invisible. Why? Because your existence is a threat. Your mere presence reminds them of everything they've buried, every failure they've ignored, every weakness they've hidden. You're the mirror they're too scared to look into. That's why they avoid you. That's why they push you down. But you're going to rise anyway. Do you think they'll clap for you? Cheer for your victories? Ha! No, they'll hate you for succeeding where they failed. They'll resent you for breaking the chains they willingly wear. But that's the beauty of it. When you impose yourself on them, when you claw your way into their world, they'll have no choice but to acknowledge you. Their silence, it'll turn into whispers. Their whispers into grudging respect. And eventually, their respect will turn into fear. Because they'll realize they can't ignore you anymore. They'll see you in every shadow, hear you in every whisper. You'll live in their minds, rent-free, an eternal reminder of the power they tried to suppress. But here's the kicker, kid. You can't just wait for that moment. You gotta take it. You gotta bleed for it, sweat for it, break for it. Because no one is going to hand you the spotlight. You gotta rip it from their cold, lifeless hands. You think you're too broken for that? Too weak? Oh, I've been there. I've been where you are, on my knees, shattered into pieces, wondering if I'd ever be whole again. But let me tell you something. They don't expect the broken ones to fight back. They don't expect you to take that pain, that rejection, that humiliation, and turn it into a weapon. But you will. Oh, you will. You see, pain is a funny thing. It either breaks you or it builds you. And the choice is always yours. So, take that pain, the insults, the dismissals, the betrayals, and let it fuel you. Turn it into fire. Let it burn so bright that it blinds them. Let it consume every excuse, every doubt, every fear. Because when the fire burns hot enough, it becomes impossible to ignore. Do you know what's worse than being hated? Being forgotten. Being invisible. And that, my friend, is what they want for you. They want you to fade into the background, to shrink into yourself until there's nothing left of you. But you're not going to give them that satisfaction. You're going to impose yourself on them. You're going to make them remember your name, because you're not just a fleeting moment in their lives. You're the storm they never saw coming. So, what are you waiting for? Permission? Approval? Acceptance? You don't need their permission to be great. You don't need their approval to exist. And you sure as hell don't need their acceptance to impose yourself on them. You are your own force of nature, kid. A hurricane, a wildfire, an earthquake. They can try to ignore you, but they can't stop you. Because you're unstoppable. Now get up, stand tall, and remind them who the hell you are. Let them try to ignore you. Let them turn their backs. But when you rise, and you will rise, you'll be so big, so loud, so undeniable, that they'll have no choice but to see you. You will impose yourself on them, despite all their attempts to ignore. And when they finally look at you, they'll see not the person they dismissed, but the force they feared all along. So, go ahead, prove them wrong. Not for them, but for you. Because you've got something they can never take away. The will to keep going. But you're sitting there hoping they'll notice, hoping they'll care, hoping they'll change. They won't. People don't change unless it serves them, unless it's convenient, unless you make it impossible for them not to. You think they don't see your effort? Oh, they see it, all right. They see you breaking yourself apart piece by piece just to prove yourself. And do you know what they're thinking? Good. Let him break. Because every crack in you makes them feel whole. Every stumble you take feeds their sick little ego. They don't want to see you rise. They want to watch you fall and then blame you for hitting the ground. This world, this beautiful, ugly world, it doesn't reward the meek. It doesn't clap for the quiet. It devours the weak and spits out their bones. If you want something from it, you've got to take it with bloody hands and a ruthless heart. You've got to demand out they see you even when they'd rather look away. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to beg for their attention. Oh no. Begging is for fools. You're not here to ask for a seat at their table. You're here to flip the damn table over and build your own. Do you get it? You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You don't need them to say, "Good job." What you need is to impose yourself on their reality so hard they can't ignore you, even if they tried. You want them to stop ignoring you? Then you give them no choice. You make so much noise they can't tune you out. You become so undeniable that even their hate turns into envy. Because that's what this is, isn't it? Their ignorance, their dismissal. It's their way of keeping you in your place. But let me tell you something about people who try to hold others down. They're always standing on shaky ground themselves. Do you know why they try so hard to ignore you? Because deep down, you terrify them. The potential they see in you scares the hell out of them. It's easier for them to pretend you don't exist than to face the reality that one day you'll surpass them. That one day you'll leave them choking on your dust, staring at the back of you as you rise higher and higher. But here's the thing, kid. Rising isn't easy. They don't tell you that part. They don't tell you about the nights you'll spend clawing at your own soul, wondering if you're enough. They don't tell you about the weight of carrying your dreams when the whole world is trying to crush them. They don't tell you about the loneliness, the sacrifice, the pain. Oh, there will be pain. But pain is the price you pay for greatness. Pain is the proof that you're alive, that you're fighting, that you're refusing to settle for the scraps they throw your way. Pain is what sharpens you. It's what turns you into the kind of person who doesn't just survive, but thrives. So what are you going to do? Sit there, waiting for them to see you? Keep breaking yourself for people who wouldn't blink if you disappeared tomorrow? Or are you going to stand up, look them in the eye and say, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, and whether you like it or not, you will notice me? Because let me tell you, when you start to impose yourself, when you start to carve out your place in this world with your own bare hands, they won't be able to ignore you anymore. They'll hate you for it, sure, but they'll also respect you. And in the end, respect is worth more than their cheap little good jobs and empty applause. Respect is earned, not given. And you're going to earn it the hard way. Do you know what's funny? The people who ignore you now, they'll be the ones claiming they always believed in you. They'll rewrite history to make themselves look better. They'll say, I always knew you had it in you. And do you know what you'll do? You'll smile. Not because you believe them, but because you'll know the truth. You'll know you got here in spite of them, not because of them. This isn't going to be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. You're going to cry. You're going to bleed. You're going to want to give up. But every time you feel like quitting, remember this. The harder they try to ignore you, the louder you become. The more they push you down, the higher you rise. You're not here to fit in. You're not here to blend into the background. You're here to stand out, to be so unapologetically yourself that they have no choice but to pay attention. And if they still refuse, then you've got to be willing to burn down their little world just to make them see you. So go ahead, prove them wrong. Not for them, but for you. Prove to yourself that you're stronger than their ignorance, braver than their dismissal, and louder than their silence. Show them that no matter how hard they try to ignore you, you will impose yourself on their lives, their minds, their very existence. Because in the end, kid, it's not about them, it's about you. And you're unstoppable. But they won't make it easy. For you, oh no. They'll pretend you don't exist. Act like your voice doesn't matter. They'll walk past you like you're some ghost on the sidewalk, invisible, irrelevant. You know why? Because ignoring you is their weapon. It's how they stay in control, keep you down. Silence is the loudest way they tell you you don't belong. And here you are, letting them win, letting their silence become your truth. Pathetic. You want their attention, their respect, their recognition. You won't get it by sitting around waiting for their approval like some stray dog begging for scraps. No, you've got to take it. Rip it out of their hands if you have to. You impose yourself on them. Force your way into their perfect little world until ignoring you becomes impossible. Until the only thing louder than their denial is the sound of your footsteps crashing through their fragile egos. Listen to me. They don't hate you because you're weak. They hate you because of what you could be. They see it, even if you don't. That fire inside you, that relentless, unyielding rage waiting to explode. But you're too busy doubting yourself to see it. Too busy drowning in your own misery, believing their lies. You know what I see? I see potential. Raw, untapped, explosive. The kind of power that makes people uncomfortable, that makes them squirm. And that's why they try to bury you, to silence you. Because they know, deep down, if you ever realize what you're capable of, you'd become unstoppable. But instead of proving them wrong, you've let them chain you up. Wrapped yourself in their opinions like their gospel. You've got their voices in your head, playing on repeat. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. Stay in your place. You know what's funny? They're more afraid of you than you are of them. That's the truth. That's the dirty little secret they don't want you to know. They're terrified because they know if you stop caring about their opinions, if you stop chasing their approval, you'll realize you don't need them. And once that happens, you'll crush them. But first, you've got to stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop whining about how unfair it is. Yeah, the game's rigged. So what? Are you gonna cry about it? Or are you gonna play to win? You want them to see you? Make them see you. Scream if you have to. Fight if you must. Drag yourself out of that pit you've dug yourself into and show up every single day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because pain is your fuel. It's your fire. Let it burn. Let it consume you until there's nothing left of the weak, broken version of yourself that they tried to create. You think they're gonna hand you anything? No one's coming to save you. No one's going to pull you out of the shadows. If you want the light, you've got to take it. Claw your way to it. Even if it leaves blood on your hands. Even if it leaves scars on your soul. Look at me. Look at what I've become. They laughed at me, called me a freak, tried to snuff me out like I was nothing. But now they can't look away. Now my name echoes in their nightmares because I stopped caring about what they thought. I stopped waiting for their permission to exist. That's what you've got to do. Stop living for them. Stop letting their approval dictate your worth. Your value isn't tied to their opinions. You define yourself. You decide who you are. And when you finally realize that, when you embrace the chaos inside you, the fire, the hunger, the need to prove them wrong, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when you become something they can't ignore. But let me warn you, this path, it's not easy. It's lonely. It's dark. You'll lose people. You'll lose parts of yourself. But in the end, when you stand on top of the ashes of everything they tried to use to destroy you, you'll see it was worth it. Because nothing tastes sweeter than proving them wrong. So, what's it gonna be? You gonna stay down here, in the dirt, letting them walk all over you? Or are you gonna rise, claw your way out, and make them choke on their own words? Because let me tell you something, kid. You don't need their acceptance. You don't need their approval. The only thing you need is you. And if they ignore you after all that, then you make them regret it. Oh, you want them to notice you? You want their respect, their validation? Let me break it to you. You'll never get it by playing nice. The world isn't a stage for the meek, and your silence, that's their weapon. Every time you bite your tongue, every time you fade into the background, you hand them the power to ignore you. But here's the thing. You don't have to ask for their attention. You take it, you seize it, you become so loud, so undeniable, that even their attempts to ignore you are drowned out by your presence. They want to act like you don't exist? Fine. Make them choke on their ignorance. Make your silence deafening, your actions blinding. You don't need their permission to matter. Hell, you don't even need them to like you. They'll hate you for daring to exist on your own terms. And that's the sweetest victory of all. I see it in you, that fire, that anger, that deep festering resentment. And it's beautiful. You just don't know how to use it yet. You've been taught to suppress it, to bury it beneath smiles and pleasantries, to swallow your pain until it burns a hole in your soul. But why? Why would you let their rules, their expectations, their fragile egos dictate who you are? Here's the truth they'll never tell you. The world belongs to those who take it. It belongs to those who are unafraid to be hated, unafraid to be different, unafraid to stand alone. You've spent your whole life waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right people to notice you. But there is no right time. There is no one coming to save you. There is no audience waiting to applaud your potential. If you want the world to see you, you have to drag them to you, kicking and screaming if you must. They will fight you. Oh, they'll fight you hard. They'll call you names, try to break you, tear you apart piece by piece until there's nothing left. But that's where they make their mistake. Because every insult, every sneer, every ounce of rejection they throw at you, that's fuel. That's ammunition. You take it and you build yourself stronger, harder, meaner. You think the greats, the ones you look up to, the ones who've left their mark on this cursed world, got there by being polite? No, they were wolves in a world full of sheep. They clawed their way to the top, stepping over the bodies of those who tried to hold them down. And you're no different. You've got it in you, whether you believe it or not. You're angry, you're hurt, you're desperate. And that's all you need. That desperation, that pain, that's your weapon. Turn it on them. Use it to carve your name into the world. But let me warn you, this path isn't for the faint of heart. It's lonely. It's brutal. You'll lose people, friends, family, people you thought you couldn't live without. They'll abandon you the moment you start to shine too brightly for their comfort. And it'll hurt. God, it'll hurt. But you'll survive. Because here's the thing, they were never really with you. They liked you weak, silent, and unassuming because it made them feel bigger, better, more important. The moment you outgrow their little boxes, they'll show their true colors. And when they do, you'll realize you never needed them in the first place. You'll impose yourself on them, all right? Not because you want their validation, but because you deserve to be seen. You'll show them that no matter how hard they try to erase you, you'll come back stronger, louder, more determined. You'll become their worst nightmare, undeniable. They want to ignore you? Fine, let them try. But make damn sure they can't. Make them see you in every shadow, hear you in every silence, feel you in every breath. Be the thing they can't escape. Be the one they remember long after you're gone. You'll do it, won't you? You'll take everything they've thrown at you, the pain, the rejection, the isolation, and you'll turn it into power. You'll stand tall, unbreakable, unstoppable. And when they finally see you, when they finally acknowledge you, it won't be because you begged for their attention. It'll be because you took it. Remember this, they don't get to decide who you are. They don't get to define your worth. You do. And if they can't see it, make them. Force it down their throats until they choke on it. You will impose yourself on them, not because you need them to see you, but because they can't survive without pretending you don't exist. And when they finally see you, it'll be too late for them to look away. They ignore you because it's easy. It's easy to pretend you're invisible when you haven't made yourself unforgettable. You see, the world operates on one simple rule. Power doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock politely on the door, waiting to be invited in. Power breaks. The door marches in and makes itself at home. And that's exactly what you need to do. They don't respect you? Good. Respect is overrated. It's not about making them like you, kid. It's about making them unable to forget you. They'll never hand you a seat at the table, but if you kick the damn table over, oh, then they'll have no choice but to notice. You think they'll see your worth one day, don't you? That if you keep your head down, keep working, keep hoping, they'll finally look up and say, wow, we underestimated you. No, that day won't come. Not unless you make it come. Do you know why they keep ignoring you? Because it's convenient. Because you let them. Every time you shrink yourself down, every time you bite your tongue, every time you wait for someone else to validate your existence, you're handing them the power to dismiss you. But here's the kicker. They don't ignore you because you're not good enough. Oh no. They ignore you because deep down, they're terrified of what you could become. You've got something they don't. Fire. Pain. The kind of pain that can break you or make you unstoppable. They don't want you to realize it. They don't want you to know that the very things you hate about yourself, the anger, the loneliness, the scars, those are your weapons. But here's the funny thing about pain. It's a forge. It either burns you alive or it hardens you into steel. So, what's it gonna be? You gonna let it consume you? Let them keep writing your story? Let them reduce you to a footnote? Or are you gonna grab the pen, tear out the pages, and carve your own legend into their damn memories? They want you to stay quiet, to stay small, to stay forgettable. But here's the thing about people like you. You don't stay forgotten for long. You've got too much rage simmering under the surface. Too much fight left in you to stay down. You're like a storm on the horizon. They see you coming, but they tell themselves it's just a drizzle. They convince themselves they can outrun it, ignore it. But by the time they realize the truth, it's too late. You've already torn through their world, left it unrecognizable, and there's no going back. You think your scars make you weak, but those scars, they're proof you survived what should have killed you. You've been to hell and back, and yet here you are, breathing, standing. You don't need their validation, their approval, their damn pity. What you need is to remind them, remind yourself, that you're not just another face in the crowd. You're the chaos they can't control, the storm they can't weather, the fire they can't extinguish. Stop waiting for someone to save you. No one's coming. The world doesn't hand out lifelines. It hands out anchors, weights to drag you down while everyone else climbs higher. You want to rise? Cut the damn rope. Swim to the surface. Claw your way to the top if you have to. And don't stop until they're choking on the sight of you. You're not invisible. They see you. They just pretend not to. Because it's easier for them to ignore your potential than to confront their own mediocrity. You're a mirror, kid, and mirrors scare the hell out of people who hate what they see. But the thing about mirrors, they reflect the truth, whether you like it or not. So, give them no choice but to look. Impose yourself on them. Force them to see you, to hear you, to remember you. And when they finally do, when they finally realize they can't ignore you anymore, that's when you'll know you've won. This world wasn't built for people like you or me. It was built to crush us, to mold us into something safe. But safe? Safe is boring. Safe is forgettable. And you're anything but that. So, stop hiding. Stop apologizing for taking up space. Start making them uncomfortable. Start making them notice. And don't stop until they can't look away, even if they want to. They'll try to ignore you. They'll try to silence you. But no matter what they do, no matter how hard they try, you will impose yourself on them. You will be the shadow that lingers, the voice that echoes, the storm that never fades. And when they finally acknowledge you, when they finally realize they can't escape your presence, it won't be because you begged for their attention. It'll be because you demanded it. Now go. Take everything they tried to deny you and make them regret ever doubting you. So here's the truth. They'll never tell you. Their silence isn't ignorance. It's fear. They see you as a threat. Why else would they work so hard to bury you? You scare them, even if you're too broken to see it yet. But that's the thing about broken things, isn't it? They're sharper, more dangerous. And when you piece yourself back together, every crack tells a story. Every scar becomes a weapon. You want to know what comes next? You get up. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels right. Not when they apologize. Because they never will. You get up now. You take all that rage, all that pain, and you craft it into something they can't ignore. You make yourself undeniable. And when they come crawling back, don't smile. Don't thank them. Don't even look their way. Walk past them like they're ghosts, because by then that's all they'll be. You will impose yourself on them. Not because they deserve it. Not because you need their approval. but because you owe it to yourself to become the force they tried so hard to extinguish. And when the world finally bends under the weight of your will, don't let it break you. Own it. Control it. Burn it if you have to. Because in the end, the only one who decides your worth is you. And the only thing they'll remember is the mark you left behind.